On my first day of my last year of high school, I decided to enroll in advanced environmental science. Now, if this were a fictional story, I would probably tell you that I did so because I wanted to further advance myself as a human being and also as a student of science. But as this is nonfiction, I must readily confess the truth is I had a monster crush on my environmental ed 1 partner, Daniel. And this was not your standard high school crush. Daniel was someone straight out of an 80s movie. Like, John Hughes seriously missed out on a great love interest. My peers called him the Thunder God, and he was on the wrestling team, and when he would saunter down the hallways, the angels would sing. On one instance, I went to Starbucks with Daniel, and the barista gave him a free drink just for showing up. Some kids I babysat for saw a picture of Daniel and asked me who the hot guy was. They were 7 years old, and they were boys, and yet they could recognize his beauty. This wasn't just an Emily thing, this was a universe thing. The universe loved Daniel. So yes, when on the first day of school he asked me if I would take Environmental Ed 2 with him, I may have changed my schedule around. May have. But there were other motivations, like laziness. I assumed Environmental Ed 2 would encompass laying in the sun and petting soft animals, and I was down for an easy A. I was wrong. What I learned on the first day was that the class would be split up into 3 sections, which would be basically, which 3 animals are you going to take care of? Now, I thought, okay, let's do this, I'm down. The first animals I drew were rats and mice. I was less than thrilled for my results, but I did learn some things. First of all, rats and mice are incredibly intelligent creatures. Rats and mice will look after each other when they're sick and are very organized. Also, rats and mice hate having their cages cleaned. Rats and mice will literally bite the hand that is attempting to feed them. Rats and mice are not great. They assume that anybody who is sticking their hand in the cage is automatically out for one of their scary pink babies. Daniel, on the other hand, drew the chinchilla. For those of you who haven't seen a chinchilla, they could be described as the softest and most adorable creatures on the planet. So yes, Daniel, chinchilla, myself, rats and mice. Not great, but of course the chinchilla loved Daniel. And it would look at Daniel with wide eyes that almost said, I love you. It was very strange. I don't know if I was projecting though. So the second round I drew snakes. Now up to this point in my life, I had no beef with snakes. I accepted them as a brand. But what I learned when I took care of snakes was that it was an entirely different experience than I anticipated. We had one California king snake and just a pileup of black snakes, like a literal pileup. And it wasn't even a snake mating ball situation, it was just that they would clump together and exist in this gross space all day long. It was not great. And it was always a challenge to move the black snakes from their original cage to their other cage to clean it. And on one particularly frustrating occasion, I was attempting to move the snakes, and every time I would stick my cautious gloved hand in the cage, 6 black snakes would turn around and hiss at me all at once. It was frightening. So I tried to get my peers to do it. No one could get the snakes to move. Tried to get my teacher to do it. Couldn't get the snakes to move. But when Daniel stuck his hand in the cage, the snakes became jello. They were suddenly incredibly calm, they would never harm anyone, and this is a good point to add that, so my peers referred to Daniel as the Thunder God, and so when Daniel stuck his hand in the cage, it was like the Thunder God was calming a sea of black snakes, and it was this incredible image. Which it was very nice of Daniel to volunteer to do this because his actual responsibility was the tortoise Merv. And Merv loved Daniel, and the snakes loved Daniel, and the chinchilla loved Daniel, because what can I say? He was a lady charmer, and a snake charmer, and an everyone charmer. It was ridiculous. On the third and final round, I drew Rats and mice, again. I was less than thrilled for my repeat results, but I was very grateful to be done with my snake wrangling days. As the semester came to a close, and eventually high school as well, and we faded to graduation, I saw less and less of Daniel. In fact, the last time I heard from him, I received a very simple text message. It read, "It's just like you always predicted. I was cast as a Greek war hero in a play." I have no memory of saying such words to him. It's funny, the mind will erase certain things, and yet other things, like an image of the thunder god with a sea of black snakes, will never be erased from my mind. Thank you.